Well, that did not go the way I expected at all. I was not expecting this finale to be the way that it is. But because of that, it's kind of amazing. Now, is it my favorite of the finales I've seen so far from the show? No, it's not. I do think that both Origins and Heroes Day are better. But only slightly. This is a very close third. Now, yes, it doesn't start off well, which we're going to talk about, but oh my goodness, does it end on a very shocking cliffhanger. One that I am going to spoil because I can't not talk about it. So, please excuse me, this is going to be a very spoiler-heavy review, and if that's something that bugs you, I apologize, but in order to really sink my claws into this finale and tell you all about it, why it is so not only genuinely shocking, but so just amazing overall, I have to talk about every little detail. So, strap yourselves in, we're ending Miraculous March 4 on a very long review. Here we go. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, your most for anything and everything animation, including two superheroes fighting crime on the other side of the world, as well as TV and movies. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Let's do it one more time for 2025. Season 4, episodes 25 and 26. Risk and Strike Back, also known as Shadow Moth's Final Attack. The grand finale of Season 4. There is a lot to talk about, so I don't want to waste too much time. We're going to dive right into it. So, here's my written review. We'll go through each part separately, that way each one doesn't get overlapped by the other. Especially part 1 getting overlapped by part 2, because part 2... Woof, part 2. Okay. So, let's dive in, shall we? Since this is a 2-part double-length special, it's best to cover each individually then, for the conclusion review, then, of how they both work together. Let's start with part 1, Risk. And boy, is it a promising start to this finale. Risk himself is a great villain. It's another child, yes, it's not out of Shadow Moth's wheelhouse, but the power that he gives him is extremely OP. What it is basically, he sings this song, and this song puts a frog marking on the back of your neck. And whenever you hear him sing this song as he's riding around his little tricycle, you immediately take more risks than you ever have in your entire life. Now, that may not sound bad, but oh man, it is a very overpowered power. Like, it is insane. Not to mention, it affects every single character in here. Aside from Hawkmoth and Felix. Those are the only two that don't get hit by it. And it's because Felix was out of town, so he was nowhere in the vicinity. And Shadow Moth, being Shadow Moth, probably has a way to protect himself from it, by not having this thing right around his mansion. Smart move on Gabe's part, I gotta say. But yeah, as soon as they get hit by this thing, whenever they hear that song, they take a lot of risks. More risks than they ever have in their entire life. And in Shadow Moth's own words, this is the way that he's going to get Ladybug to make a mistake. By taking risks. Something that she apparently hasn't done before. Even though Season 2 and 1 would differ, she's taken plenty of risks. But, okay, I'll let it fly for story reasons. So yeah, Risk, great villain. Not to mention hiding the Akuma, genuinely smart. Shadow Moth's plan is one of the best of the season. I already went over why. Felix coming back and discovering his aunt's corpse was actually shocking. Like, yes, we saw Adrian discover the corpse in Ephemeral, but that was a what-if scenario. That wasn't really an episode that matters in the overall story. It's more just one of those, like, if this happens, world ends scenarios. So, having Felix discover not only that Gabe is Shadow Moth, as he expected him to be, but also that his aunt is in a refrigerated container underneath the mansion. Because thanks to this little spyglass thing he wears over his eye, I don't really know what they call it. I don't remember if it has a name or not. I'll have to look it up later, and editing will put it in here if there is a name. If not, we're just going to call it a spy monocle. A spy monocle, we'll call it that. So using this spy monocle, he's able to find the combination in the painting to send him down to Hawkmoth's lair, where he finds the refrigerated corpse of his aunt. And now using this, he has leverage, which is, that's a genuinely scary thing. The story's solid. I'm not going to say it's great because a lot of it is wasted on Lila and Adrian being forced to model together and they're traveling to New York. Honestly, it makes that entire little bit from Penalty even more pointless. Because it ultimately amounts to nothing, and Lila does absolutely nothing in this finale. Literally nothing. The desperation from Marinette to save Adrian is pretty funny. It's Marinette being as over-the-top and creepy stalker as she usually is. And here, it's not as cringe because her friends actually call her out on it. Like, she literally tries to make a plot with her friends to stop Adrian from leaving, and they outright just say no. That's a first. And it's setting up a huge battle against Shadow Moth's most powerful sentient monster yet quite nicely. Strike Back is overpowered as hell. Like, he is one of the most OP, insane sentient monsters that this show's ever come up with. And we'll talk about him more when we get to part 2, but seriously, he is crazy freaking good. That being said, though, it's not a great episode due to some poor pacing, Lila being as annoying as ever, and like I said, barely doing anything outside of pissing off Marinette, I guess, and one massive plot hole. What's that plot hole? Well, it is addressed in part 2, which we'll talk about, but I'll just say that when Felix finds the painting and finds the safe behind it, he finds what he thinks is the peacock Miraculous. And seeing him grab it, I'm like, oh, now Gabe can't be Shadow Moth because someone stole his Miraculous. Well, it's explained in part 2, but I will just say, in part 1, if you're left confused by that, when you see Gabe still transform afterwards, that's a perfectly reasonable reaction because I was confused too. But yeah, that is a massive plot hole. It's addressed, but it's still a plot hole. It's still good overall, and is a decent setup for part 2's escalation, but it's got some pretty big issues that will keep it from being great. Like, if I was just talking about this episode by itself, it'd be like a 6. It's not very good. It's pretty meh, honestly. But then, there's part 2, Strike Back. Where to even start? Part 1's plot hole is immediately addressed and explained. So, if you saw part 1, which, I mean, more than likely you did if you watched part 2, but in case you didn't, in part 1, we had Felix steal the Peacock Miraculous, but we still see Gabe turn to Shadow Moth. Well, it's explained that that Miraculous that Felix stole was a fake. So yeah, you can tell that Felix is pretty pissed when he finds that out. The battle's phenomenal. Like, oh my goodness, the battle against Strike Back is insane. Let me tell you about this sentient monster and what he can do. Not only is he a giant spiked monster capable of absolute crazy destruction, but he also has another very overpowered ability. That being that he can actually copy the miraculous powers of whoever touches him. So we see this thing multiply into 3, steal Vesperia's venom, and have Purple Tigress's power of Cloud, or, just super powered punch. Is pretty much what it is. So, yeah, not only is it that bad, but then it gets even worse because of that thing on the back of their neck from past episode, because of Risk, Cat Noir outright disobeys Ladybug, attacks the monster, and gets his Cataclysm stolen. Which means now that one of these giant evil strikebacks has Cat Noir's power of destruction. That is just insane that they actually let that happen. Like, escalation is an understatement. Strikeback is easily the best Senti monster of the season. Like, out of all the Senti monsters of the season, this one's the most powerful, this one is the most dangerous, and it's the one that's the hardest to defeat. The stakes are higher than ever. We literally get to see these three things destroy Paris, and we get to see, like, the sky gets clouded with smoke, everything turns orange because everything's on fire. Like, it is genuinely shocking the lengths that they go to with this Senti monster's power. And for first in the entire series, Ladybug loses. Now, yes, she's able to stop both Risk and Strikeback through plot armor, honestly. It's blatant plot armor, and very, very convenient unification of many different Miraculouses altogether. But she still loses, because she does the thing that Shadow Moth was hoping she would do. Because of the Risk thing on the back of her neck, she makes a giant mistake. What is this mistake, you may ask? Well, you remember how earlier, where Felix was posing as Adrian on the train? Well, Marinette, not knowing that it's Felix, and Felix still dressed like he's Adrian, Marinette shows up using Voyage and gives him the Dog Miraculous. And he plays his part. He gets to turn into a miraculous hero. A cool one at that, but I know it's not going to last because, we have Miss Hound. But, yeah, Felix gets to be a miraculous hero. And when Ladybug isn't even knowing of who he actually is, she tells him about the Dog Miraculous's power. And also tells him where all the Miraculous are stored when they're not given to their user. So naturally, after Felix gets the hang of this ability, called Fetch, where anything his ball touches, he can summon it to him at a moment's notice, he, in the heat of battle, touches Marinette's yo-yo, and then allows all the other heroes to defeat the monster without him. Because he then goes straight to Gabe and uses it as leverage to not only get the Peacock Miraculous, but also to give him back the wedding ring of his dead wife's. And in exchange for this, he summons Ladybug's yo-yo right as she's starting to figure out everything after running into the real Adrian when trying to get the Miraculous back. And Felix steals her yo-yo and gives all the other Miraculous besides the Ladybug and the cats to Gabe. Which means that Marinette has made the biggest mistake she could have possibly made as the Guardian, and lost all of the Miraculous. And we end this entire season on Hawkmoth, more powerful than he has ever been before, and the stakes being higher than they've ever been, ending on a somber note. there is no happy ending on this one. No happy ending at all. Like the past few, we've had a happy ending and maybe a sad moment here and there because of what happens. But, oh my goodness, this one has a somber, nihilistic ending that I did not see coming. Like, even after I got spoiled about the part actually happening, I didn't get spoiled about how it all transpired. So, when I finally saw the entire episode and how it all played out, not only does it make Felix a more cunning and capable villain than he's ever been, but it also gives Ladybug her most crushing defeat. She loses to her own risks. I was so shocked that they actually had the balls to go that far. But yeah, needless to say that the battle is now going to be even more tough and even more vicious and brutal next season. Because next season is the closeout of this entire Hawk Moth arc of Miraculous. So, yeah, it ends on that somber note, and Marinette, understandably, has a panic attack. And she gets the yo-yo back, because she detransforms, and then transforms back. But it's too late. She has lost all the Miraculous, and Hawkmoth makes a proclamation of attacking them non-stop until Ladybug and Cat Noir give up their Miraculous. Which means now they have this everything stacked against them higher than they've ever had in this entire show to this point. Like, it's crazy. Mistaking Felix for Adrian, giving him the dog Miraculous, and letting him use his new power to steal the yo-yo, giving Shadow Moth every single Miraculous besides hers and Cat Noir's, which allows him to ascend to Monarch, which he's going to call himself next season, so I'm just going to throw it in here. Setting up this entire overarching story's finale to come. It's a genuinely shocking and well-written conclusion to the two-parter that escalated everything to exponential levels, setting the stage for Season 5 and the final battle yet to come. Final verdict for Strike Back by itself is a 12. If we were talking about just the episodes by itself, this is the best one of Season 4. Like, undeniably. If it wasn't Part 2 and a finale, this would be the best episode of the season. But because it is, we have to lump it in with Part 1. So, how are both of them together? When you put Risk and Strike Back together, how do they work as a conjoined, double-length finale? It is overall an outstanding finale to Season 4 that perfectly sets up this arc's big final war in Season 5. Sure, Part 1 has some issues, but Part 2 alone, with that insane cliffhanger, makes it more than worth it. While I do think that both Origins and Heroes Day are better finales, this is still incredible in its own right. Highly recommended, and it has my hopes very high for Season 5. Like, if they can stick the landing, this could be something genuinely incredible. So, with all that said, with us probably by now reaching the 20-minute mark, or at least close to it, let's get into the final verdict. My final verdict for Shadow Moth's final attack, the season finale of Season 4, both Risk and Strike Back put together, is going to be an 18 out of 20. Yes, it's not quite classic, but it is still excellent, it's still great, it's still outstanding, and it is still an insanely shocking finale to go out on. Just amazing job by the writers for coming up with something this genuinely clever, to pull off a twist this cataclysmic. And that's it. With that, we have officially covered every single episode of Season 4 of Miraculous Ladybug. There are no specials in this season, but we do get two-parters next season, from what I've been able to gather from research, as well as the next Miraculous World special. So, yeah, Season 5 is going to be a big conglomerate to cover next year. But, before I go, I should list off my 10 best episodes of the season. And if you're wondering how it all plays out after going through this entire season, it would look something like this. With Guilt Trip still at number 1, this finale at number 5, because of part 1 just being decent, and Kuroneko being in the top 3. Call it bias, that's just how I am. I am a huge Cat Noir fan, and I loved that episode so much. So, now that you know my top 10 of the season, what is now the overall ranking of all 4 seasons put together of this show? Well, it would look something like this. With Season 3, I believe. Yes, Season 3 still at the top. And Season 4 overall, it's still a great season. It had some very low lows, and we finally ended up diving into some outright trash episodes, but when this season was great, it was really great. I only hope that Season 5 can deliver on everything it's promising, because if it can stick the landing and give us an incredible final season for this arc to go out on, yeah, it could be something genuinely insane, and I can't wait to talk about it. So, yep, that is it. That is going to conclude another season review of Miraculous Ladybug. Our 4th, as a matter of fact. And I just gotta say, thank you guys all for the support, for making this the most successful marathon of Miraculous that we've gone through so far. And thank you all so much for your continued support over the past 5 years. It has been a blessing to do this channel for you guys, and even though I do have low moments when I have to tear things to shreds, I genuinely love what I'm doing. And I have you guys to thank for giving me the motivation to keep this going. So, while we may be done with Miraculous for the time being, I still really enjoyed the journey with you guys, and I can't wait to be back here next year to talk about it again in Season 5. But, as for us here on Animation Station, you guys know what's next. April. And you know what that means. It means we're going to be returning to another series that we've covered previously. And just like Miraculous, it's one of my least viewed ones, but it's still one that we have to talk about, because with this particular show coming to an end this year, I gotta do at least one of them. So, yep. So, if you guys don't remember, last April, we covered this. We covered the entire first season of My Hero Academia. Now, it's time to move on to the next season. A much longer season than Season 1. Season 1 was only 12 episodes, right? 13. It was only 13 episodes. But this season, it is almost triple that length. It's a very long season, so strap yourselves in, as starting on April 1st, we will be starting Season 2 of My Hero Academia. The season where we have Gran Torino, more progression into the development of Deku's abilities. And of course, the introduction of Hero Killer Stain and setting up the League of Villains that takes over in Season 3. So, it's going to be a pretty big season. There's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about, and I am genuinely super excited to talk about it because I freaking love My Hero Academia, and I am so happy I get to talk about it again with you. And yes, don't worry, I will also be reviewing the 4th My Hero movie because I, for some reason, just could not see it last year. I don't know why I was having such difficulty, but I just couldn't. But the physical release for that one is coming out on April 1st, so that means you're going to be getting both the first episode of Season 2 and my review of the 4th movie. So, we're going to be a little out of order here, but I think you guys can allow me this one little change up. So, yep, that's what you had to look forward to. So, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time for Academia April 2. Claws in. See you next year, Miraculous. Thank you for such an incredible journey. Peace.
Excited for what comes up ahead. Patient ride.